Hi, this is the video for Module 9, and let's see, where should I begin? I guess I'll begin with the readings. Spring, Chapter 9. You're going to read Spring's Chapter 9, and that chapter is very long. I've always thought Chapter 9 should be two chapters. It has so much information in it. The first part of Chapter 9 that you're going to learn about is sort of what he talks about is human capital. And that's essentially how can we prepare students to help out the American economy? And how can we make sure that what their talents are is a fit for what is needed in the workforce and in the market? So by really the turn of the century, during industrialization, this becomes more and more of an issue is, are we preparing students to be able to take on the jobs in the workforce? And as jobs became more complicated, I guess, people started essentially crying out that, students aren't ready, and these types of things. But what's also going on at the time is, how do you prepare students for college, and how do you prepare students for real life? Like one's not the other. There are several reports that come out. There's one that comes out, the Committee of 10, and that's in 1894. That one basically wants to address how to standardize. There's so many more students going to high school. How do you standardize what each high school is doing so that colleges know, if Joe went to this high school over here, did he meet the same standards as going to this high school over here? So they're trying to come to some sort of consensus about standards for accepting students into colleges from high schools. And, essentially the question becomes, do we prepare all students just as though they were going to college? All students get a liberal education alike, or do we have a different type of education for people who are not going to college? And I think what you're going to find is that they essentially believe that it's not democratic if you don't prepare everyone. Everyone deserves a chance. So then you'll get later on into, I think it's 1918, you'll get to a different committee report, and that one's called the Cardinal Principles Report, and that's also a very famous piece of policy in the United States history of education. And that one essentially establishes the comprehensive high school. And that report addresses the fact that although we want to remain democratic and we want to prepare students who are not going to be able to go to college as much as we want to prepare students who are going to be able to go to college, what they do decide in that report is that we're going to keep everybody in the same school, though. We're going to keep everyone in the same high school. So even though they may go and take different classes and different coursework, at least in their electives and in clubs and organizations after school and eating at lunchtime, different classes, different types of people, those going to college, those not going to college, will still be able to socialize together, and will still be able to learn from each other and meet each other, and these types of things. It's a very American, a very democratic, I think, approach to dealing with high school. Unlike, Europe, where they're sending certain kids, take a test at 13 and go off to a vocational school, while other kids go off to an academic, college prep type school. Anyway, so those are just some things in Chapter 9. What else? Oh, there's a ton of people. Oh my goodness, there's a ton of people. There's Dewey, there's Thorndike, there's William James, there's William Chandler Bagley, there's William Herd Kilpatrick. These are all names that you'll learn more about. I give you a PowerPoint to kind of sum up why these different people are important and are famous in our field. And Herbart, lesson plans, these types of things. So there's a lot in Chapter 9. So I've given you a PowerPoint. It also has a lot in the PowerPoint to try and sum up all of the important information there. So then the other two readings were Chapter 6 in the Darling-Hammond and Chapter 6 in the Ravitch book. Chapter 6 in Darling-Hammond is really, really interesting. I love reading that chapter. I don't assign this book in my face-to-face class because it's too much for what we're doing in our face-to-face class. But this chapter is one that I have assigned, just scanned and assigned, because I think it's so important for we talk a lot about what's wrong with our system in the United States. Okay, well, so then what's an alternative, And I think it's really interesting to read about Finland, Singapore, and South Korea. And I think you're going to find that in chapter 6 of the Darling Hammond book. So, comparisons with other countries and essentially what are they doing that we're not doing. And you ask yourself critically too, is it fair for us to compare? Singapore is a country the size of a city, essentially, a large city. So is it really fair for us to compare, with these other smaller countries, a huge country like the United States? And I think that there is an argument that kind of equates, and makes it make more sense. And you'll find out what that is when you read the chapter. Um, and I think the other important thing about that too is what is the role of teachers in the other countries? I always find that very interesting. I compare in my head what do we do here? How do we treat teachers? What is the role of teachers here? And then what is the role and how do they treat teachers in these other countries that have very high performing, test scores on these international measures? Anyway, so hopefully you'll find that chapter as interesting as I did. And then in the Ravitch chapter, it's all about NCLB. It is a wonderful, wonderful overview of the No Child Left Behind legislation. And I think she does a really good job of summing up everything that was intended to happen with the legislation. And then, of course, everything that went wrong as well. And, remember, she supported it initially. Well, I mean, how can you not support, No Child Left Behind? Yes, I want children left behind. I mean, just the wording of the legislation, is impossible to go against. So anyway, I think it's a really good overview, and I think you'll learn. It's a short chapter. I think you'll learn a lot from that. And then I've included a PDF of a PowerPoint that I give sometimes, and I wasn't sure how to do it for my online class. But I think it's important. I feel like we talk so much about the negatives, so much about what's wrong with education today that I'm trying to give you a pep talk. This is my sort of pep talk for you guys, my little PDF. So view it. It's totally optional. Obviously, I'm not assigning anything to go with it, but it's just some pieces of my teaching history, some little notes that I've saved. I mean, I've got a huge file of notes, and you'll probably do the same when you start teaching, of just things that I've saved over the years that help. Whenever I'm feeling down, whenever I'm feeling like things are going bad, I just pull out this little file of notes, and I read all these wonderful things that kids have written me over the years. Excuse me, students have written me over the years. And it really makes your day, and it really makes you remember why you became a teacher to begin with. So that's really my point of you viewing that. And then there's a discussion question to go along with that. Because we had the midterm last week, this is one of the rare weeks that you will have both a journal entry number 4, and you will have quiz number 4 in the same module. So you're going to go ahead and complete those. Spring break is next week. And obviously we won't be doing any modules during spring break. I hope you enjoy yourself. But keep in mind that you have some due dates that are definitely coming up, and they're going to start coming up very quick. The next one that's due, of course, is your Schools in Film essay, compare and contrast essay, and that is going to be due March 30th. And then you're going to have your critical issue project that will be due on April 13th. And then you'll have your field report, your field experience report. That'll be due the 27th of April. And then, of course, your final is due, shortly after that. So things are going to start basically being due, every other week or so. So make sure that you're planning ahead and that you're preparing for that. But I think that's it about Module 9. And I guess I'll talk to you in Module 10.